with my work is mentioning the overarching themes, which are history and documenting personal histories of everyday people. So I'm using jewellery as a form of social commentary. So my earliest memory of being a jeweller was at about 4 years old, going beyond the plaster necklace and collecting items from a rubbish tip in the garden of the English home I grew up in. So this rubbish tip was pretty amazing. Lots of little shards of china and broken bottles, which I then crafted into little necklaces and things. So that's the starting point of this whole collection of work, which is from 2007. So one of the main starting point were these diaries that I found. The diaries were from a deceased estate, and I just thought it was heartbreaking that I found these diaries just in a junk store. This gentleman had documented his life every day for 40 years and had a collection of diaries. So with selecting objects which I thought were relevant for diary entries, I created a body of work, which is a personal form of history, which I was able to craft into pieces of jewellery with sterling silver. And at the time, fairly limited jewellery making skills. But that changes. So beyond that, I was lucky enough to work with Form, Contemporary Craft and Design, and I was asked to document some of the components of the Midland Railway workshops. So within this process, I decided to go beyond just the buildings and the function of the space, and I looked at the employees who worked and maybe the wives of the employees of the space. So with this, I went to the Alexander Library and I went through a lot of the oral histories, and I did a lot of listening, documenting, and I met with some of the families who had worked or had been involved with families in the workshops. And so that's how I created this body of work. So with all of my work, it's not just the finished item. There's normally a box load of research that goes with each item, which spreads from the house to the studio, to the car, various gallery meetings I go to. There's a little trail everywhere. So to keep that research in mind with the pieces of work, I always document and provide a collection envelope and collection card with each individual work. So this is a further way of communicating the history of each piece. And then in the next cabinet, this is the first time I ever dealt with dealing with a personal history, because I've never seen the need to document my family's history. But my mum is also a collector, and she has all the letters from her mum, my gran, over a 60-year period. Every Wednesday, my gran and mum would sit down wherever they were in the world and write a letter to each other every Wednesday. So I can't imagine doing that, but it meant I had a lovely stack of envelopes and letters to work from. And I also didn't realise the time when I started making this work was also, I think I started making it the week of the anniversary of my gran's 10 years since she died. So there's a little bit of serendipity in my work as well. Sometimes I don't quite realise what's happening and why I'm making something. So I started making this series of works, and it was quite interesting, showing family, because they didn't. Sometimes family don't have the same, understanding of family values, perhaps, and the importance of a letter. So that was, my first encounter of what is a significant object and how to store and collect certain things. And then in the next cabinet, I started working on a series which I called a power study. And what I was trying to do was interpret different forms of power structures through jewellery in society. So I started referencing the cameo form and looking at the form of the power of the cameo as used in society by, more prestigious people through history. So that's where that piece works. And then my most current work is all the sterling silver rings and earrings in the last cabinet, which were from a recent trip to Mexico, which was last year. And again, this was a different A different body of work for me because I was expressing myself within the jewellery, which I haven't done before. And perhaps it was a method of trying to understand my feeling of displacement in another country by putting myself into the work. So within those works, I've evolved my process the whole way through my work and developing skills along the way. And the last body of work, the Mexico series, relies a lot more on my mark making on the objects rather than the found objects themselves. So my little piece of myself is the final mark rather than relying on the feathers or the human hair used in the neck pieces. And beyond the finished work, like I mentioned earlier, my research process is really key to everything I do. And to best document that, I thought I'd bring these. I hope I've got enough. So maybe pass one of these around. So for everything I make and everything I find, there's a photograph. So beyond having a ridiculously large stash of tins and diaries and old jewellery, I have these photos which document my collecting process, which sometimes I feel is more important than the final piece of work, is that then it becomes my own private collection. So that, and as well, that helps me, I guess, let go of the jewellery I've made. So I guess the history I'm documenting, I'm trying to set myself apart from just wearable jewellery to jewellery becoming more of a social movement or a documentation of history and time. And I'm continuing this in other work that I do in regional communities, and in particular working with Indigenous communities and looking at other ways of presenting other people's histories using my formulas.